Yellow tea. If you had listened to the primer on white tea and are now acquainted with the processing of yellow tea isn't so different. It's not so different from green tea either, except one special step. Yellow tea refers to a leaf which is picked. It undergoes a slight withering, not usually as long as white tea, and this is followed by a step called kill green, which happens in every type of tea except pu'er and white. Kill green, firing, frying, or parching, whatever word you want to use, is a step in tea processing that the enzymes alive in the leaf that are responsible for oxidation are deactivated or killed. And this happens by somehow heating the leaf up to a point of at least 65 degrees Celsius or 150 Fahrenheit. Whether this happens with steam, a wok, hot air, etc., is up to the producer and the country's tea culture. For the most part in China, this step is done in a giant wok. The kill green is followed by a smothering process, which is unique to yellow tea, where a hot, wet blanket is put over the leaves so that they sweat from the heat and the moisture of this blanket but aren't really exposed to oxygen during this time. After which, the tea is dried out. This smothering process gives yellow teas a distinct custardy, almost fresh soybean sprout honeyed character in the aroma. And though generally more interesting than white tea to me, yellow tea is definitely not a powerhouse of flavor, at least none which I've ever tried. It's the kind of tea you might really love when you sit quietly by yourself and focus on the tea, but not one you'll tend to appreciate when you've got it in a thermos on the way to work. Yellow tea is very rare outside of China and really inside of China too, other than the areas which are classically known for it. The process I just talked about is not set in stone either, and what I mean by that is that in some teas, the smothering process will happen after the kill green step, but some will happen after a preliminary drying. China has at least 9 famous yellow teas from various provinces in which this process is adjusted. The difference between most of them will be what type of leaf is picked, whether that's the buds versus the young leaves, for example, and where in the process the smothering step happens, and if it will happen more than once, as is the case in the most iconic yellow tea, Junshan Yinchen, where the buds are picked, they get parched, dried, smothered, dried, smothered again before the final drying process. If, for the sake of learning about yellow tea, you ever want to try a great one, the best I've had come from Sichuan, Anhui, and Hunan provinces. Names to look out for are Huoshan Huangya from Anhui, Mengding Huanya from Sichuan, and Junshan Yinchen, of course, from Hunan. Though the most famous of the yellow teas is by far Junshan Yinchen, it is probably also the yellow tea with the biggest range on the quality spectrum too, and of course price. Due to this incredible fame, it gets copied a lot, and sometimes by very incapable producers. Pre-2016, there was one company that had the right to create the authentic Junshan Yinchen. That was the Hunan Tea Company. There was a patent owned by this company on that term, Junshan Yinchen, and the production techniques associated with it, but that expired in 2016 and it wasn't eligible for renewal. So due to this, the Hunan Tea Company left the island, and they were replaced by tea manufacturers from the mainland who don't necessarily do the name justice, and stylistically, it's quite different these days. The island is tiny. It's not even a square kilometer big, and the tea produced on this island is only on about 25 hectares of land. These days, Junshan also refers to a district just north of the island on the mainland where this authentic Junshan Yinshan tea can also be produced. And this is indeed where the vast majority of it comes from. If by any chance you were in the market for trying a yellow tea, I have quite a good Junshan Yinshan in my shop. I'll leave a link in the description, but thank you very much for listening. The next week we'll talk about green tea.